Dragon was born kind of out of a shared love of craft brewing and a lot of the trips that you went on and all of that kind of stuff. So just give me like the nutshell version, which I'm sure is not really a nutshell, of, you know, kind of your starting process and what kind of how you decided or what made you decide to open a craft brewery in Fort Collins.
We have always loved craft beer since we were first introduced to it back when we were in college. Tim was a junior and I was a senior on the San Francisco Peninsula, and he took me to a brewery out there, microbrewery out there. We loved the beer. He started home brewing when we moved overseas. We lived overseas for
10 years.
Well, really 13
right.
altogether, and 10 years in Milwaukee, and he was home brewing a lot of that time. So that we can have some great tasting beer.
Yeah.
And we also loved the culture of it. It matches a lot what we wanted to do in each community in which we lived, which is to get involved, be supportive of the organizations that are trying to support their communities, gather people together, celebrate, really treasure and savor great food and beer rather than just quantity over quality. Yeah, and so for a lot of reasons, we loved the industry and always dreamed about having a brewery.
I think the other part of it was so when we lived overseas, when you always come back home during summertime, it's called home leave, and I grew up in Oregon and Carol grew up in Colorado, so when we were coming back every time, we would go visit our families, first in Oregon and then Colorado or vice versa, and we saw the kind of development of the industry then as well. So we were able to enjoy some really great breweries from the beginning, like Deschutes and in Oregon, as well as some of the local ones in Eugene, not quite in Ninkasi, we didn't see them, and then here in Colorado as well, Boulder Brewing, and then in Fort Collins, New Belgium and Odell started 25 plus years ago. So every time we came home, we would go to those places and enjoy the beers, and that kind of spawned, or at least I don't know, manifests itself in us enjoying craft beer everywhere, wherever we would visit. We talked about doing a brewery together for probably 15 years. So I had a business plan that was kind of a sketchy thing going, and some ideas around how that would look, and also around names and locations as well. So the second piece was really, once we decided to go ahead and do it in 2012, our younger daughter had graduated from high school, and we said, okay, well, let's do this now finally. We've been talking about this for a while. We looked at a couple of different places. We definitely looked in Oregon, looked in Bend for specifically, even though my parents live in Eugene. And we looked in Fort Collins because we had been visiting here forever. I'd been coming here for 25 years, and Carol's been coming here her whole life because her grandparents were with CSU. We looked in a couple of other places that people suggested. A good friend of mine that I worked with at Miller was very hot on the hill country in Texas. He said that'd be a great place for a brewery. We looked in Milwaukee, actually. We lived there for a while and felt like we could raise money, and we felt like they, at that stage, needed some good hops. So we thought that might be a place to go. But really, I mean, it came down to Oregon and Colorado because we love the outdoors, we love the environment that those places bring. And then it really came down to the business side. I mean, I had to convince Carol to live in the same town with her parents, so hopefully they won't see this.
Yeah, no kidding.
But,
this is private, right? Between the four breweries.
Oh yeah, sure.
So I said, really Colorado actually has a better growth market than Oregon. One of the coolest parts about it, we knew that there were a number of breweries here. Obviously, we were something like number 13 or 14 just in Fort Collins, and that doesn't include Loveland, Greeley, whatever. But
and now I think we're at 21.
Yeah, 21 here now, and I think it was much better than we thought. Honestly, I mean, we knew about the community that was created by a brewery itself, but really didn't think a ton about the community of brewers. About who we would be friends or colleagues with and peers with. And I mean, the brewing community was so welcoming to us.
Yes. Yeah, agreed. And I think that continues now, even for the new breweries that are just opening up. I hope they feel that same welcome. There are a lot of groups that where the brewers meet together. We have a water group. If you have any questions at all, you've got at least 10 other people ready to answer them. We're on a common email chain where people are trading hops or grain back and forth if they're short something, or need a part for their system or some advice. It's just fantastic and unanticipated, actually, that side of it. We're about to turn 3 on May 1st, and so we still feel very much like we're in startup phase. We have a bunch more beer than cash, and we have a bunch of stainless that we're paying off. So people, you're visible in the community, and people are asking all the time. But what we did before we started was choose the areas of charitable interest that we're interested in, and then each person we hire also designates an area of charitable interest. And if any requests come through from those types of organizations, then we try to do something a little more with them, whether that be hands-on volunteer hours or some kind of cash or fundraising for them rather than just a beer donation. So for me, my thing is early childhood literacy. So I'm involved with it's an organization called Book Trust. It's a national organization. Hopefully it's in your states. Actually, it just started in Northern California. I'm not sure about the South, where they are in the South. But anyway, look it up, booktrust.org. Awesome. Allows kids who otherwise couldn't, to order from Scholastic book order forms each month. And then they choose and own their own books. They develop a little personal library over the course of a year. It's just an awesome program. Anyway, so early childhood literacy is my thing. Tim's is basically clean water or watershed health. And so we've done some volunteer work and some fundraising for the Coalition for the Poudre River Watershed and for wildland restoration volunteers. Our head brewer's thing is animal rescue. We have a gal who works in the tap room whose dad has MS. So those are a couple of organizations that we tend to do a little bit more with. And then this wasn't one of our things, but we were introduced to someone who started an organization called the Firefighter Community Compassion Fund in Poudre Fire Authority. And what it does is allow the fire trucks to carry a debit card so that as they respond to 911 calls and they see need in our community, in our homes, that they enter, they just address immediate needs. So if they evacuate a family that, the kids don't have winter coats, or they don't have any diapers, or one woman who couldn't pay her heating bill and they noticed it was freezing in her house, and they just go and pay the heating bill. And so one of our good friends established that fund and was chatting about it one time, and we just thought it was so cool because it's not even really helping firefighters, it's helping ourselves, So we have a specific beer that we brew right about this time. We're about to launch it. We want it out for St. Patrick's Day every year, and we donate $1 a pint of sales of that beer every time we have it on to that fund. So. Well, and then of course we have a bunch of people in the tap room. We're open. We're just a tasting room. We don't have we have no food trucks, no live music. So because our model is wholesale, basically, but we wanted to have a place where people could come and try the beers. So we're open 12 to 6 every day, except for 4 days a year.
And we have a couple of students. We have a couple of people that work at CSU that are working part-time. We have a teacher. She comes in on weekends and works weekend shifts. And we have a couple of industry, real full-time sort of service industry people that work at other jobs, and then we're kind of half-time with them. So it's a nice mix of cross-section of Fort Collins, I think. And they all are beer people, which is sort of ingrained in our culture here. I like to tell the story. Somebody says, when I talk about the high level of craft beer knowledge across Fort Collins and people that come into the tap room and that we see. And one guy had brought his mother in. She's like, he goes, I think he told me later, she's like 75. So she walks in and says, this is my mother. Oh, nice to meet you. We had met before. I'd met him before and whatever. And so her first question was, what kind of hops do you use in your IPA? This is a 75-year-old woman. So we joke around when people publish articles saying, how can we get women to drink more beer? I'm like, well, in Fort Collins, that doesn't seem to be an issue.